So, the last few videos that I've made have been on the topic of how 3D reality is an illusion in general, but also that the events happening in the outer world can be misleading to the point that eventually I think it makes sense to just realize that we have so little ability down here on Earth in our 3D lives with our conscious brain. We have so little ability to really know what anything means as to render it almost a complete, if not a total, waste of time in general. And what I wanted to say today is that this is especially true when it comes to people. Especially, this one's for the specific person crowd. This isn't even Neville Goddard. This isn't even spiritual in nature. This is just like slumber party, 8th grade, overnight wisdom. What people say should always be taken with an absolute grain of salt. People's emotions are like the wind. You can love somebody one day and hate them the next day. You could be madly in love with somebody, and you can come up with right now, you personally, you can probably come up with 100 scenarios where that feeling could change instantly. If you found out the person that you're in love with was a pedophile, would you still want to be with them? Would you still be romantically attracted? I'm guessing for most of the sane people watching this, the answer is no. That is how much of an illusion feelings are. Feelings are all within you, and other people's feelings are all within them. And somebody can love you one day, somebody can hate you the next day. That's not to say that real love doesn't exist and that relationships don't exist, because of course they do. But when it comes to looking to 3D to give you a clue about what's happening with whatever you've decided to set into motion with your creative mind, it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time, and it's counterproductive because it's really just a way to ruin your present moment. Sorry. You know, if you get something that seems like a good sign, you'll be happy. If you get something that seems like a bad sign, you'll be sad. And the truth is that you don't know what either of those things really mean in the overall grand scheme of whatever you're trying to do. And so it's just an utter waste of your time and emotions. You know, the one, I've talked about this a little bit on this channel, but the one really mind-blowing side effect that has happened in my life since I finally completely gave up the idea that there's anything random happening. You know, I lived for 20 years pretty much believing that I had plenty of input, that I could create, if I put my focused attention on something, that it would come about via all of the ways that we are talking about with Neville and everybody else. I believed that I knew that was in play, but I also kind of believed that certain parts of life were not subject to that, which seems really dumb now. And I also thought that, you know, things I wasn't focusing my attention directly on and directly influencing could sort of be random, like things could happen to me. without realizing that it was my overall view and my subconscious programming and everything else that was creating everything that was happening to me. And since I realized in sort of an instant that it is all coming from me, I've had this really interesting side effect of the past and the future falling away. I would say I spent the majority of my time worrying about the future before. Not living in the present at all. I mean, that living in the present moment has been, I've experienced that in the past briefly for a few months. It was a beautiful thing, and it's a beautiful thing now. It's such a novel thing when you get in touch with the fact that the future does not exist. It's always the present moment, just at a different point in the made-up human timeline, the way we experience things. There is no future. And there's no past. Your memories of the past are so malleable that you really don't have any idea what really happened. You're living in a subjective reality anyway. And then add to that the failings of the human memory and different ways that people view different situations, and it's just a waste of time. It's a waste of time to think about either one. And I haven't had to force myself to stop. I just don't. If something isn't happening in my immediate present, like for example, I mentioned in a different video a couple days ago that for about 3 weeks I've been super anxious because I had several situations happening in my right now 3D that I fell victim to the illusion again. I fell into the trap again of thinking that my worrying here in 3D in my conscious mind was going to do anything, when all I really had to do was just decide what I want to happen and send the message, and then sit back and take my rational, seemingly problem-solving brain and just shut it off and let it be guided. That's the only time that I've been experiencing any sort of discomfort or worry about the short-term future, especially, is when there's something happening right now. And so when there's not, and if I could just get control over realizing that I don't need to worry anyway, there is this profound connection to right now. And it's this really like blissful and connected feeling of peace and like positive like I just assume everything is going to happen, everything good is going to happen to me. It's just natural, it just feels that way. And so my point in saying all that is that it's really helpful to understand that you don't know what anything that's happening means, because if you can really convince yourself of that, it's the truth. It's the truth. It takes a while to unlearn this. I've been operating for 40 years under the impression that, I could understand what was happening around me and what it all meant, despite tons of evidence to the contrary. It takes a minute to really just get out of the habit of thinking that way, and to get used to the idea that many things that happen in 3D appear to be a good thing, but they're actually a bad thing, or they appear to be a bad thing, but they're actually a good thing. Sometimes you get what you want and it's awful for you, what you think you want. And sometimes, somebody behaving a certain way, you take to mean one thing, and it actually means something very different that is in line with the thing that you want. And so since you can't know, and that's especially true with people, that was why I wanted to post this video, because people watch other people's behavior like a hawk, myself included. There's no judgment. But, you know, other people's behavior is the most misleading thing out there. Even people that are straight shooters are still subject to being human beings. They don't always know how they feel about things. They don't always know what they want. You know, they'll sometimes think they feel a certain way, but they actually feel a different way, you know, and then those are the best of the best. Now add in other people that, you know, aren't as emotionally intelligent or advanced or whatever, and you're going to have a whole bunch of confusion if what you do is look to outside events as an indicator of, you know, whether or not things are going the way you want them to go. So it's beautiful. You can just stop worrying if you can really grasp that, and you can slowly but surely stop judging 3D events as having overall meaning, and just believe that they are what they are, which is a part of this big woven tapestry. And all you really have to do is know that you're going to get the thing you want. Just know you're going to get it. You know, there's all these techniques, doing, you know, imaginal scenes before bed, affirmations, all this stuff. All you really need to do is say, I know this is going to happen for me. I know it. And just let that just course through your body. I choose this thing. I know that by choosing it, it will happen. And so therefore it's going to happen. If you can do that, then you can just begin to allow the worry and the anxiety to leave you and start living a peaceful existence. Spend more time at the gym like me. Time for me to go in. I hope that helps somebody. If you're manifesting back a specific person, that's its own ball of wax. But especially if you're looking to other people's actions to indicate, you know, if they love you or if they're interested in you, just don't bother. Just don't bother. People will say they love you when they don't, and people will say that they hate you when they love you. Bottom line.